8 seconds. Storm's 8 miles away.
They came here on a boat. Maybe we can take it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a speedboat.
The main guy here. He's got a gun.
Well, at least one of us can get on their boat. Get some help.
When Until Dawn launched in late 2015, developer Supermassive Games tapped into a killer idea. It took players by surprise, a choose-your-own adventure-style horror game set to a classic cabin-in-the-woods backdrop. We'd seen the likes of Telltale's The Walking Dead push a similar idea, but this took it to another level in terms of budget and scale. It also boasted some of the best visuals on PS4, as a platform exclusive built on the Decima engine. Hot off the heels of its use in KILLZONE SHADOWFALL, the technology powered a game with some truly standout facial motion capture. It propelled a horror showcase that holds up 4 years on, and today we finally have a spiritual successor in Man of Medan.
Hey! Move it!
Okay, some things have changed. Firstly, Supermassive Games is going for a kind of anthology experience through a series called The Dark Pictures, where every entry in it is entirely unique. Each game to come will be a standalone adventure, taking on different horror tropes. There's no final word on how many entries are planned, but Man of Medan is the first, an interactive spin on the haunted ship setting. On top of that, there's also a form of online co-op multiplayer this time. Where Until Dawn was very much a single-player game, Man of Medan lets 2 players take control of different characters simultaneously, affecting the way the story unfolds. There's also a 5-player offline mode, where each person takes charge of one of the 5 main characters.
Splayed out on the floor is a man and a woman brutally murdered with an axe.
Always an axe. I mean, do people even use axes anymore?
Playing Man of Medan at a recent press event, the online co-op works surprisingly well. From each player's perspective, it convinces you you're carving out your own story. There's no voice chat, but you can still get across your intent by choosing to help or hinder the other player. So for example, when the boat gets hijacked, I decided to leave the other player tied up, limiting their choices. Who knows how the story might have unfolded otherwise, and that's where the replay should come in. The only confusing part here is both online players switch roles between the entire cast, and even control the same character at different points. It's worth stressing this is an early preview build, and subject to tweaks ahead of release. With that said, the co-op modes are still a neat idea that separates it from Supermassive's other work. Technically speaking, it's all changed too. The environment has changed and online multiplayer is added. The branching pathways and strong motion capture tech return, but the fact is this game is no longer a PS4 exclusive. Instead, we're looking at a multi-platform release, spreading across the PC and Xbox One systems. Indeed, it comes out in an era where support for Xbox One X and PS4 Pro is also expected, so there's a lot of hardware to cover. What we've got in the limelight today though is the PS4 Pro version with 4K output selected, a press demo build with some rough spots that should be cleared up by release. The move to multi-platform development has a knock-on effect, where the Decima engine is replaced in favour of the more widely used Unreal Engine 4. It's understood the Decima tech is reserved for Sony-produced titles after all, with the likes of Horizon Zero Dawn and Death Stranding. In a way though, Unreal is a sensible alternative given the proven scalability it has across so many platforms. In speaking to the team directly at Supermassive, I'm also told the support it gets from the UE dev community did help hugely in getting the game off the ground. Now, Supermassive has released games on Unreal already, such as Hidden Agenda, but Man of Medan is the first game it demoed internally to get a feel for the toolset. Gladly, the quality of motion capture transfers between engines. Many of the technologies used in Until Dawn slot in right here, including the workflow for facial and body capture, which stays the same. It's easy to see a common ground too. The realism of character motion is still a strong point, and underpins the game's cinematic ambition. Skin, and especially eyes, are scanned separately from the main capture process, and combined with the physically based rendering on materials, the results are often convincing.
Standard issue regulatory institutional protocol subdivision 1099.
Uh-huh. Where'd you read that?
PBR is par for course these days, but far from a given. Man of Medan benefits from a more photorealistic lighting setup. I'm told by the developer that it gives its art team a foundation to build on for establishing the tone of every scene. The brightness of the dust skyline, for example, can be adjusted, and materials scanned in for skin, clothing and scars then accordingly react to that low level of light. Supermassive also tone maps by the scene for dramatic impacts here, with the tint shifting as the characters approach the SS Medan. The support of high dynamic range is also a big plus. It's offered on every platform, and while I didn't have a compatible TV to test it, the style of the game should lend itself well to showing off deep blacks and peak whites. In terms of new Unreal Engine level features, the addition of volumetric fog plays right into that extra sense of depth across the scene. Volumetrics are mainly used in this scene, the hijacking of the boat, to give that hazy atmosphere on the skyline. And later again, the fog is deployed for this storm scene to give the air an extra layer of thickness. It's lovely stuff. Okay, it's an early build and not everything is perfect here. I couldn't help but notice texture pop-in is an issue on select camera cuts, though in fairness there's time to optimize by release. If the entire point of Man of Medan is to convince us we're in an interactive movie, then this should be high on the bug fix list. It's worth giving the benefit of the doubt to Supermassive that it'll be sorted, and we'll be back with a full analysis when it comes to every platform. All told, it's amazing to see the team find a way for Unreal to work the way they want it to. The visual identity is surprisingly similar to Until Dawn, despite the engine change and a move to multi-plat development. Fortunately, this time we also get proper PS4 Pro and Xbox One X support, something that wasn't patched into the last project. Now, there's no telling what the native res is on base PS4 just yet, but pixel testing PS4 Pro shows numbers typically at 2560 by 1440. Actually, it's less than 1440p in effect. The game unfolds in a cinematic 2.39:1 aspect ratio, meaning you get borders at the top and bottom, cutting the vertical axis resolution. It's possible there's a performance saving here. That ultra-wide view may add a cinematic flair to the presentation, but it also cuts a lot of the visible real estate out, which could save on GPU load. All told, that 1440p setup with borders still looks great on a 4K display. With post anti-aliasing and use of bloom and bokeh depth of field effects, it's a convincingly clean frame with little in the way of stair-stepping. That in itself is a big step up over Until Dawn, which to this day never got any 4K mode support at all on PS4 Pro, and so it's still stuck at a native 1080p. The visual design is solid, but what of performance? Well, it's too early to put our frame rate tools to what is essentially a demo build, but I can say what I can see. Frame rates waver between 15 and 30 FPS in this demo, and you've probably noticed it getting a little choppy in certain parts. Fortunately, it's not a shooter where fast reflexes matter to the same extent, and the camera perspective is also controlled by the developer. A 30 FPS target really makes sense for this kind of game, where authentic visuals take precedent over fast refreshes, but still there's hopefully an improvement coming in the final code.
No, stop it!
As a showing for PS4 Pro, it's interesting to note the difference between Man of Medan and Until Dawn. In this case, we do have a 30 FPS cap in place, a ceiling that prevents the frame rate rising above that point. However, we're also, in this case, dealing with bouts of uneven frame pacing. It's not quite on the level of Bloodborne, but still a cause of some judder even in the best case. Fluctuations between 16 and 50 milliseconds cause it, where the frame should ideally persist on screen for 33 milliseconds every time to create a smooth sense of motion.
You, come with me.
Man of Medan is V-synced at least, but yes, it's quite different to the way Until Dawn works. Looking back, that game ran with a purely uncapped frame rate as you can see here, hopping between 20 and 40 FPS as it saw fit on the base PS4. Moving to PS4 Pro, we had no actual official upgrade, but with the arrival of a boost mode toggle, you could still tap into some of its power with a residual benefit to frame rates. So here's that test, Until Dawn running with boost mode off and on, which does improve it by 4 to 5 FPS. Nothing too wild, but it's the best way to play the game at the moment. So where does that leave Man of Medan? Well, we're only a little ways off its August 30th release, and there's a lot of ground to cover with all the different consoles. PS4 Pro could very well be improved by then, plus there's the matter of Xbox One X, which has that obvious GPU power edge over Pro. Potentially, and if it's not simply putting that 6 teraflops of power to work on a higher res, we could be getting faster performance from X, but we'll have to wait and see. The other mystery is how the base consoles will fare, especially the regular Xbox One, which is notoriously the weakest link of the four. Supermassive did explain to me that its approach to weaker platforms is to tweak shadows and combine geometry if needs be, to steal back performance when necessary. There's a lot to discover in Man of Medan. In a more general sense, I'm fascinated to see how seamlessly the story will branch out, especially with 2 players online weighing in. It's a 4 to 5 hour long adventure, though with the many branches to its story, which is set to need 8 to 9 playthroughs to see fully, I'm sure there's mileage to it. I can't wait to see more.
We could all use a good show.
But that's all I have for today. If you did like this analysis, please feel free to like or subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications as any video lands. To get this video at source file quality, check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, and to get in touch directly, just use Twitter. But from me for now, thanks for watching.